Hello and welcome, everybody. We are presenting tonight on the MTHFR gene mutation with the Frequency Soul Collective group. We are joined by our beautiful Kelly Wotherspoon, who's actually a naturopath and bioresonance therapist and a very good friend of mine. She has a special interest in candida, parasites, postpartum prep and recovery, detoxing and shedding support. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, Kel. We're so grateful that you've taken the time out to come and join us and have a little chat to us about the MTHFR gene mutation.
You're welcome. Always happy to help out.
Wonderful. Okay, so how this actual Zoom presentation came about is I'm a homeschooling mum who works from home. I have multiple businesses that I run, one of which is actually with a company called Solex. Now, Solex have a range of phenomenal products, one of which is actually called Prime. Now, recently, they've just released a new Prime methylated, which is specifically for people with the MTHFR gene mutation. So we thought that we would do a Zoom presentation just to give you guys a bit of information about what that is. And yeah, so Kella's joining us tonight to give us the lowdown and the rundown on what it is and what we can do about it. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now, Kella, if that's all right.
Fire away.
Beautiful. So what is the MTHFR gene mutation?
Essentially, MTHFR in the body is just a fancy acronym for a really long word, which is methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. And all that means is that it is an enzyme which allows us to what we call methylate in the body. So methylation is really not going to make sense to a lot of people here unless you're a biochemistry whiz. But methylation is just about the addition of a methyl group, which is just a carbon and two hydrogens. But it's super, super, super important process in the body, which we'll talk more about. But if you have an MTHFR gene mutation, as us Prakis affectionately call this gene mutation the motherfucker gene, because if you've got it, it's a bit of a motherfucker. Because what it does is it allows lots and lots of different processes in the body, but what it can do is it can inhibit methylation by up to 70%. So you have lots of processes in the body that can be really badly inhibited. And this affects all sorts of things. It affects our ability to detox. It affects our neurotransmitter production. So neurotransmitters are our little things that make us happy, like dopamine and serotonin and GABA for anxiety and all of that fun stuff. We need methylation for hormone metabolism, for histamine metabolism. So those who have allergies are going to be familiar with histamine metabolism. We need it for DNA and genetic expression. We need it for amino acid metabolism, and we need it for growth and development. So it's just a little bit important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what are the symptoms and the conditions that are relating to MTHFR? You kind of did just touch on a couple then, but yeah, what are the main symptoms?
There's heaps. There are so many, and they overlap with lots and lots of other things. The mutations are linked to elevated homocysteine, which is associated with heart disease and stroke, schizophrenia, major depression, and associated bipolar disorder. That's the large end of the scale. The smaller end of the scale is generalized anxiety and depressive disorders and mood dysfunction. It's linked to dementia and Alzheimer's. It's linked to chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. When there is infertility and recurrent miscarriage, when women are suffering those sorts of things, you would be looking for this kind of genetic mutation because it inhibits folate, what's the right word? Metabolism. It's linked with birth defects, including spina bifida, because of that folate metabolism. It's linked with cancer and it's linked with autoimmune disease, especially Hashimoto's.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. So how do we know if we have it? What are some tests that we can have done, and who will generally do those tests for us?
You would have a MTHFR gene mutation test done. So there are two mutations. For ease of reference here, we'll call it the A gene and the C gene. And you can have either, and you can have one copy of one, or you can have one copy of both, or you can have two copies of both. And if you have two copies of both, then you are inhibited by all of those processes that I just spoke about before by up to 70%. So it's a big deal if you've got some of this stuff going on, especially if you have both copies 2 times and you inherit them from your parents. You would get a test done. You could get a test done from your naturopath or from your GP. Test is, I think from memory, about $80 for the first test. And then if anyone in your family has that test and tests positive for any of those genes and any sequence of those genes, further testing for your immediate family is then free.
Okay. Oh, fabulous. That's really, really good. Okay. So is there anything else that comes along with the MTHFR gene mutations? Are there other gene mutations to look out for or that we're more likely to be prone to if we do test positive for MTHFR?
There are so many, like I can't even.
Yeah.
So obviously there are thousands, but you would have to speak to someone who's an epigeneticist or someone like Heather Way who specializes in nutrigenomics and to break all that stuff down, where they test for hundreds of different what we call SNPs, which is a single nucleotide polymorphism, which makes no sense to you guys, but it just inhibits certain processes in the body that make us able to regulate ourselves, regulate our hormone pathways, support our liver and our kidneys with detoxification, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so obviously we live in a very highly toxic world at the moment. We're being bombarded from many, many avenues. So if you do have this gene mutation, it can cause quite, intense issues within the body, isn't it? Like it's crazy times we're living in at the moment. So sometimes it can just take that small little bit of toxin overload to sort of push us over the edge and create some massive issues. So I think you did touch, should we have our children tested if one or both parents have tested positive? So obviously that would be a very, very good idea.
Yeah, you can do it a number of ways. So if you go to a doctor, they're just going to give you a blood test. If you go to a naturopath, I'm sure those of us with bubbies, we don't want to give our babies a blood test because that's really invasive. So what we can do with that is you can see a naturopath and get it's like a cheek spot test where you just take cells from the inside of the cheek. It's a little thing that you just rub on the inside and send that off, and that will give you the results as well.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, so if we do test positive, what are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves? Are there certain vitamins, minerals, or anything like that we need to avoid having that gene mutation? Are there any specific physical signs that would give us a general indicator as to whether or not we have MTHFR?
Yeah. So physical signs include things like it's called a sacral. There's a few. So there's one that's called a sacral dimple, and it's if you have a bubby or a little child that will let you do this to them, you can just pull apart the top of the bum cheeks and it'll just be this little dimple just at the top of the bum cheeks. Lots of us that have MTHFR genetic mutations have tongue, lip, and cheek ties, like buccal ties, which can cause all sorts of issues and is hugely misdiagnosed, especially in this country. There are probably 50 professionals across the entire of Australia that are even proficient at diagnosing. You'll have the sugar bug. So lots of kids have the sugar bug, which is that blue vein that comes up in between their eyes. There's also the stalk bite, which is it's like a red kind of birthmark that kind of looks like across their forehead. Yeah. Most kids, and I think the ones that probably haven't been diagnosed with it haven't been tested, because most kids on the ASD spectrum have several of these genetic mutations going on, and they do not detox properly. So keeping their lives very clean is super important. So things that nutrient-wise, the two big ones are folate, not to be confused with folic acid, because it is not the same thing. If you have a motherfucker gene, you cannot metabolize folic acid properly. And if a doctor is telling you to take folic acid when you have this, find a new doctor who is proficient in this. And there's lots and lots of different things that you should be avoiding. So when you've got one gene, okay. You've got one of both, yeah, not so great. You've got two of both. You need to live a very, very clean lifestyle. You should probably avoid alcohol because your liver doesn't detox very well at all. And you probably should either be taking care of your gut absorption and having that looked at and tested so that the folate and the B12 that you're ingesting, which are the two big nutrients associated with this, are being absorbed. And if you have leaky gut issues, you will need to supplement, but you will need to play with the forms of these nutrients that are good for you. So with a product like you were talking about at the beginning of the call, like Prime, like with what Solex have introduced, this is a nice option for those who have, you know, one or all of the copies of the gene mutation, because it does have folate and it does have B12. So you don't want to go out and you don't want to just get folate, and you don't want to just get, you know, 5-MTHF, which is the precursor to folate, and you don't want to get, you know, folinic acid, and you don't want to get, you know, something like, if you want to get a whole food folate, that's the best way to go. But you really do need to play with what's right for you, because not everybody can take one form. Like, I can tell everybody to do folinic acid and it's not going to work for everyone. There's no one size fits all. And then the other one is B12. So B12, you're really only going to find bioavailable B12 from animal products. So this is a really, really huge issue for vegetarians and vegans, more so vegans. They have to supplement B12, otherwise they end up with pernicious anemia, and that will kill you. And what they do, if you've got an MTHFR genetic mutation and you need B12, you don't want to take the really, really common form of B12, which is called cyanocobalamin. You want to take a methylated form of B12, which is something that's included within this Prime product. And like, just looking at this product, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here that's not just those two nutrients. It's a lot of other stuff as well. And what the other nutrients that are included within this product are a part of, and this is me minimizing what they do just for ease of reference and time that we have, is they plug into the different enzymatic pathways within that methylation cycle. So within that methylation cycle, you need folate, you need B9, B9, which is folate, you need B12, you need zinc, you need magnesium, you need B2, and all of that's part of the methylation cycle. But there's lots and lots of other bits and pieces that are in this product as well. Like, there's broccoli sprouts, which is amazing for phase 2 liver detox. You've got chromium, which is incredible for sugar balance. And we know that 80% of Australians have metabolic issues. And so having chromium is a really, really important thing to have in any product. Everyone in this country should be on chromium. So there's lots and lots of really, really nice things in this product that are not only supportive to the methylation cycle, but general health and metabolic health, which is awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, love. What else was I going to ask you? Did we want to open up for a couple of questions from those who are on the call? Did anyone have any questions? You're welcome to pop them in the chat and I can ask Kelly, or you can unmute yourself and feel free to ask her if there's anything specifically that you were wanting to know. Nope, nothing as yet. That's all good. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to talk to us about in regards to MTHFR, honey? Anything that I may have missed asking you that comes to your mind that people need to know? How much of the population do you think has the MTHFR gene mutation?
Oh, look, if you read sources, they'll probably tell you about 35%, but I reckon about 70.
Okay, so quite a high portion. Yeah.
From what I find in my testing.
Okay.
So I reckon it's about 70%. Wow. If you don't have any of them, like, you're doing pretty well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, there's so much going within our bodies, or going on within our bodies at the moment. You know, with, like I said, the toxicity levels are just so high that our bodies are just so overloaded and so burdened that it's creating some really major issues. I know many of my customers, you know, I'm constantly getting messages saying, I'm just not feeling well. I feel sick all the time. I'm tired all the time. That just seems to be the general consensus. And people, you know, they're not thriving. They're not feeling good. They're just not able to sort of get back to being energetic and to have, you know, just to feel good and to, you know, for their body not to be aching or, you know, having all these weird and strange pains going on. So anything that we can introduce into our diets or into our bodies that are going to be of benefit to us, are definitely called for these days.
Yeah, and look, the other recommendation that I can have for anybody, and this is generalized advice for everyone, not just people with a motherfucker gene, is that pick your poisons. And I say this to everybody, we live in a toxic soup. We cannot get away from it. There is glyphosate in the water table, which means it's in the air that we breathe. We can't get away from it. We're in Wi-Fi and 4G and now 5G everywhere. We're breathing in crap from just general pollution all the time. Now we have the extra added impact of what's happened over the last sort of 12 to 18 months with the COVID vaccinations that have now come in. They're affecting all of us, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. So I say to everybody, pick your poisons. Be careful about what you allow in your life. And that doesn't mean strip everything out so that you don't have any quality of life. It just means be selective. There's a few questions here. Without a test, if you have fibro and allergies, you're likely to have this gene. Look, you're not going to know unless you're going to get tested for it. But if you have fibro and allergies, you have a leaky gut, which means you have candida. And if you have fibro, you have parasites. So in this country, we're not taught to cleanse for parasites, which is quite disturbing. In other countries, Slavic countries and Scandinavian countries, it's written in as a caveat into their health and life insurance policies that if you don't cleanse twice a year, your insurance is void. Because they know that parasites cause autoimmune diseases, they cause cancers. And so they know if you don't do this stuff, you may end up with that later down the track, which is just insane. And no one teaches us how to do this here. And so if you've got that kind of stuff going on, you've probably got a bit of a gut healing journey ahead of you. Would I start with diagnosis for the motherfucker gene? Well, you can if you want to, but I would, if I was in your position there, Colette, I would start working with somebody who specializes in gut health, who can really get you some results rapidly so that you feel better and can have some quality of life, in addition to treating the underlying cause.
Absolutely. And for those who are interested, Kelly is actually based on the Sunshine Coast. She specializes in Candida, so she'd definitely be a good one to hit up to offer you additional support and get you on top of those issues. I can speak personally on my experience with Kel. She has just worked wonders for myself and my two boys. So yeah, if anyone is actually requiring additional support in regards to gut health or Candida, Kelly is definitely one to hit up.
And I do take clients online as well. I've got people all over Australia and
remotely. Yes.
Well. So if you're not in my neck of the woods, but you want my help, I can help you. Why does it really come up when I scan myself and then it goes away? Well, that's a hard one to answer because there's things called there's a thing called co-resonance. So sometimes when it comes up, it might come up as in line with something else that's co-resonant. Same thing happens with my bioresonance device when there's co-resonant stuff going on. For example, mercury and milk are linked, they're co-resonant, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But if it comes up sometimes and doesn't come up other times and you want a definitive yes or no, get a test done. Like, it's worth getting a test done to know. And then you know how inhibited you are, how careful you have to be with your poisons, how big your focus has to be on your gut health and all of those sorts of things. So if in doubt, go get a test.
Yeah, absolutely.
How to cleanse from parasites? Quite easily, actually. I have a protocol that I use for all of my clients. It depends how bad the infestation is as to how many rounds we do. I always do it over a full moon, but I use ingredients like, included in my protocol are ingredients like oregano oil and black walnut hull and wormwood and those sorts of things. And I pulse it over the full moon because full moon is when your parasites are most active. And it's not really the moon. It's just because they move through the body more freely with serotonin, and serotonin peaks in all of us on the full moon. So when you find people who lose their minds on the full moon or can't sleep, it's because they're like riddled with parasites and probably need to cleanse.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can generally tell with kids too when they're really, really moody and emotional and there's all sorts going on around the full moon. You know, it's a pretty good indicator that something needs to be done.
Does this product, is this capsules, Mita, or is this a tablet? What's the form that it's coming in?
Capsules.
It is capsules?
Yes.
So for For parents who have kids who are on the spectrum, but you haven't been tested for this, it might be a really good idea to try and do this topically. The way that I would get this product into my ASD kids properly, if I had ASD kids, would be I would go and get an oil-based or a fat-based base cream, like a vitamin E base cream would be perfect. And I would empty a capsule into some cream that would last you for about 2 or 3 days with one capsule split over that so that you can get your dose, so you're not overdosing your children.
Mm-hmm.
And I would apply it to the soles of their feet when they go to bed.
Okay.
And so getting, looking after ASD kids who have methylation issues going on, and they all have methylation issues going on. And typically can't get anything into them orally. So going topically is a really, really, really good idea. And if they're so sensory that they won't let you put stuff on them when they're awake, wait till they're asleep and go in and do it then.
Yeah, good idea. Good idea. Because I know what my boys are like. They would sleep through an earthquake. They don't tend to wake up, once they're asleep. So that's a perfect time to do these things if they have these little sensory quirks where they don't like specific textures or things on their bodies or sensations or feelings. So yeah, that's
just wait half an hour to 45 minutes after they've just fallen asleep so they get through that first REM cycle, and then they're in that deeper sleep and they are not going to wake up when you put it on your feet.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, no, so that's we've got information on the Prime, obviously. Kelly has had a look and given us some great information on the Prime. The company Solex that I work with, they have a range of supplements. They've got Omega Pro and they've got Think. So there are also some good ones as well that whoever invited you to the call, you can hit them up for further information.